Chosen one, you survived something most people never see. And it made you who you are. Archangel Michael is speaking to you today. Not with a promise of instant miracles. With something more honest. A recognition of what you have already carried. You have been through something. You know exactly what it is. It already came to your mind the moment you read this. Nobody clapped for you when it happened. There was no audience. No applause. Just you. Alone with it. And you got through it anyway. Think about that for a second. Really sit with it. You did not collapse. You did not disappear. You are still here. Reading this. Breathing. Alive. That is not nothing. That is everything. Most people will never understand what that particular season cost you. The nights you did not sleep. The mornings you forced yourself to get up anyway. The smile you wore in public while something inside you was breaking quietly. They saw the smile. They never saw the break. You carried it alone. And you kept walking. This message is not going to tell you that your pain was secretly a gift. It was not a gift. It was hard. It was unfair. It was heavier than anyone around you understood. But here is the truth. It also taught you something. Something no comfortable, easy season ever could have taught you. It taught you what you are actually made of. Think back to the exact moment things felt darkest. The moment you genuinely did not know if you would make it through. Remember that feeling. Now look at yourself right now. You made it through. That is proof. Not theory. Not wishful thinking. Proof. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not the broken thing certain difficult moments once tried to convince you that you were. You are someone who has already survived the worst thing you have faced so far. And that means something. Let that sink in for a moment. Here is something worth naming honestly. Survival like this rarely gets celebrated the way it deserves. Nobody throws you a party for getting through a devastating loss. Nobody applauds you for staying afloat during a season of financial collapse. Nobody gives you a medal for holding your family together while quietly falling apart yourself. This kind of strength stays invisible. Hidden. Private. But invisible does not mean unreal. It just means unseen. Today, this message sees it. Fully. Clearly. Without minimizing a single bit of what it actually cost you. Consider, honestly, what specific thing you survived. Was it a loss that reshaped your entire world? Was it a betrayal from someone you trusted completely? Was it an illness that tested every ounce of strength you had? Was it a failure that shattered how you saw yourself? Was it simply loneliness so heavy it felt like it might swallow you whole? Whatever it was, name it now. Silently, if you need to. Just name it. You do not need to explain it to anyone. You do not need to justify how hard it was. You already know. And Archangel Michael already knows too. Here is something important. Surviving something difficult does not mean you came through it completely unaffected. It does not mean every wound has fully healed. Some of it may still be tender. Some of it may still ache on quiet nights. That is allowed. Survival is not the same as painless. You are allowed to still be healing. You are allowed to still be tired. You are allowed to still carry some of the weight, even while continuing to move forward. None of that erases what you have already accomplished. You are still here. Let us talk about what this particular kind of survival actually built inside you, whether you have consciously noticed it yet or not. It built patience. Real patience. Not the surface-level kind that disappears the moment life gets slightly inconvenient. The deep kind. The kind forged specifically by living through genuine difficulty and refusing to give up. It built discernment. You now notice things you did not notice before. You sense which people are genuine and which are not. You feel it faster now. That instinct did not exist before this season. It exists now because of it. It built quiet strength. Not the loud, performative kind. The kind that does not need an audience. The kind that simply shows up, again and again, without asking for recognition. You have that now. Whether you have named it or not, it is already yours. Here is something else worth sitting with. The specific difficulty you survived was not randomly assigned to punish you. This is not a message claiming everything happens for some mysterious cosmic reason designed specifically to comfort you after the fact. That kind of thinking can sometimes minimize genuine pain, and this message refuses to do that to you. What it will say instead is simpler. You faced something real. You handled it the best you could, with whatever resources you had at the time. And you are still standing. That matters. Regardless of why it happened. Regardless of whether it makes complete sense even now. You made it through. That is the fact this message is asking you to fully receive today. Now here is a question worth asking honestly. Have you actually given yourself credit for this? Real credit. Not a passing thought quickly brushed aside. Genuine, deliberate acknowledgement. Many people who survive something significant move immediately into the next challenge without ever pausing to recognize what they just came through. They treat survival as simply expected, ordinary, nothing worth genuine acknowledgement. But it is worth acknowledgement. It is worth real, deliberate recognition. Take a moment right now. Silently, or out loud if you are somewhere private enough. Say to yourself, I survived that. I am still here. That matters. Let those words actually land. Do not rush past them. Archangel Michael is not offering you empty flattery today. This message is not designed to simply make you feel good for a passing moment before you close it and forget it entirely. It is offering you something more lasting. Recognition. Honest, deserved recognition, for something you have genuinely earned through real, lived difficulty. You earned this moment of being seen. Think, too, about who you have quietly become because of what you survived. Not who you were forced to pretend to be during the difficulty itself. Who you have actually, genuinely become since. Are you more compassionate now toward other people going through hard things? Are you less quick to judge someone else's struggle, because you finally understand from the inside what struggle actually feels like? Are you slower to complain about small inconveniences, because you know now what real difficulty actually feels like compared to minor daily annoyance? If any of this resonates, that transformation is not accidental. It came directly from what you survived. Pain, when it does not destroy a person completely, often deepens them. It does not have to. It is not guaranteed. But when a person keeps choosing, again and again, not to give up, not to become bitter, not to close themselves off entirely, that pain gradually becomes something else. It becomes depth. It becomes wisdom. It becomes quiet, earned strength. You did that. Whether you fully recognize it yet or not, you did that. Here is something worth being honest about too. Some days, even now, you probably still doubt yourself. Some days the old fear creeps back in. Some days you wonder if you are actually as strong as this message is suggesting, or if you just got lucky, or if you are simply pretending to be okay while secretly still falling apart inside. That doubt is normal. It does not erase what is true. You survived. The proof is not in how confident you feel on any particular day. The proof is simply in the fact that you are here, reading this, still moving forward despite everything that tried to stop you. Confidence can waver. The truth of what you already accomplished does not. Consider, too, how much energy it actually takes to survive something significant while still showing up for ordinary daily responsibilities. Working, parenting, maintaining relationships, getting groceries, answering emails. All while carrying something heavy underneath the surface that most people around you never even knew existed. That takes enormous strength. Strength most people never have to demonstrate, because they have never faced what you faced. You did it anyway. Quietly. Without asking anyone to notice. This message is asking you to finally notice it yourself. Here is something worth remembering going forward. The next time life presents a new difficulty, and it likely will, because difficulty tends to keep arriving throughout every human life regardless of how much a person has already endured, you will not be facing it as the same person you were before this particular season. You will be facing it as someone who has already proven, through direct, lived experience, that you can survive genuinely hard things. That is not a small advantage. That is significant, earned confidence, built the only way real confidence is ever actually built. Through having already done the hard thing once, and lived to tell about it. Carry that with you. Let it steady you the next time fear tries to convince you that you cannot handle whatever comes next. You already know you can. You have proof. Here is something else this message wants to name clearly. You are allowed to be proud of yourself. Not arrogant. Not boastful. Simply, quietly proud. Proud that you did not give up when giving up would have been the easier path. Proud that you kept showing up for the people who needed you, even while quietly struggling yourself. Proud that you found a way through, even when you could not see the way through clearly at the time. That pride is earned. Let yourself feel it, even briefly, even privately, right now. Consider, too, what it might mean to finally release some of the shame that sometimes attaches itself to difficult seasons, especially seasons involving loss, failure, or circumstances that felt embarrassing at the time they were happening. Shame often convinces people to hide their survival story entirely, treating it as something to be ashamed of rather than something to be honored. You do not need to hide it anymore. What you survived is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be honored, quietly, on your own terms, in your own time. You do not owe anyone the full details of what you went through. But you owe yourself the honest acknowledgement that it happened, and that you made it through. Think about where that shame originally came from, if it exists within you at all. Sometimes it comes from cultural messaging suggesting certain struggles reflect personal failure rather than simply ordinary, difficult human experience. Sometimes it comes from specific people in your life who responded to your struggle with judgment instead of compassion, teaching you, unfairly, that vulnerability equals weakness. Neither of these sources deserves the authority they have held over how you feel about your own story. Release that authority today, even if only partially, even if complete release takes more time and continued practice. Here is something worth considering about the people around you who may not fully understand what you went through, or who may have quietly judged you during that difficult season without knowing the full weight of what you were actually carrying. Their misunderstanding does not diminish what actually happened to you. Their lack of awareness does not erase your survival. People often judge from the outside, without ever seeing the full picture from within. You know the full picture. That is enough. You do not need their understanding in order for your survival to be real and valid. Release the need for external validation regarding this particular chapter of your life. You already know what it cost you. That knowledge belongs to you, fully, regardless of who else ever fully understands it. Think, too, about the specific moment when things finally began to shift, even slightly, during that difficult season. The first small sign that things might eventually improve. The first moment you felt even a flicker of hope again after what may have felt like an extended period without any hope at all. Remember that moment. Hold on to it. It represents something important. It represents the exact point where your own resilience began actively working in your favor, even before you may have consciously recognized it happening. That resilience is still active within you today. It does not disappear once a specific crisis passes. It remains, quietly available, ready to be called upon again whenever life presents its next significant challenge. You carry that resilience with you now, permanently. It is part of who you are. Consider what specific lesson this particular season taught you about your own priorities, your own values, your own sense of what genuinely matters most in life. Difficult seasons often clarify priorities in ways that comfortable, easy seasons rarely manage to achieve as effectively. Perhaps you learned that certain relationships mattered more than you previously realized. Perhaps you learned that certain ambitions mattered less than you once believed. Perhaps you simply learned to appreciate ordinary, quiet moments of peace in a way you never fully appreciated before everything became difficult. Whatever specific clarity emerged from that season, it remains valuable now, informing how you continue moving forward with a clearer sense of what genuinely matters most to you. Here is something worth considering about your capacity to help others now, specifically because of what you survived. Somewhere in your life, right now or in the future, someone else is likely facing something similar to what you already survived. They may be terrified. They may feel completely alone. They may believe no one could possibly understand what they are going through. You could be exactly the person who understands. Not because you read about it somewhere, but because you actually lived through something similar yourself. This does not mean you owe anyone your story before you are ready to share it. But when you eventually are ready, your survival becomes more than simply your own personal victory. It becomes a genuine resource, capable of offering real comfort to someone else who desperately needs to know that survival is actually possible. Consider what it might mean, eventually, to share at least part of your story with someone who needs exactly the kind of hope only someone who has actually survived something similar can genuinely offer. You do not need to do this today. But someday, when you are ready, this particular gift may become available to you, born directly from what you once had to survive alone. Let us talk about specific kinds of survival, since your particular story might match one of these closely, or it might weave together pieces of several. Maybe you survived a marriage or relationship ending. Not just the breakup itself. The identity crisis that followed it. The empty side of the bed. The friends who quietly took sides. The holidays that suddenly felt different. You rebuilt a life from pieces that did not seem like they would ever fit back together. They fit back together. Maybe not exactly as before. But they fit. Maybe you survived a job loss that shook more than your finances. It shook how you saw yourself. Suddenly the title was gone. The routine was gone. The sense of purpose you did not realize was tied so tightly to that role was gone too. You had to rebuild an entire sense of who you were, separate from what you did for a living. You did that. Even on the days it felt impossible. Maybe you survived a health scare. A diagnosis that stopped your entire world for a moment. Waiting rooms. Test results. Nights where sleep would not come because your mind would not stop racing. You learned what it actually feels like to not take tomorrow for granted. You are still here. Still breathing. Still fighting, if that fight is not yet over. Maybe you survived financial collapse. Watching numbers shrink. Making impossible choices between bills. Swallowing pride to ask for help, or refusing to ask and carrying the weight completely alone instead. Either way, you found a way through a season that tested you in ways money problems alone rarely explain fully. You are still standing. Still finding a way forward. Maybe you survived the loss of someone you loved. Not a metaphorical loss. An actual death. The kind of grief that rearranges a person completely. The kind where ordinary tasks like grocery shopping suddenly feel unbearable because you remember buying their favorite food out of habit before catching yourself. That grief does not fully disappear. But you learn to carry it and still keep walking. That itself is a form of survival few people ever discuss honestly. Maybe you survived a season of mental and emotional darkness that had no single, clear external cause. Just heaviness. Unexplainable, persistent heaviness that made even small tasks feel enormous. You kept going anyway, one small task at a time, even when you could not explain to anyone exactly why everything felt so hard. That kind of survival rarely gets recognized publicly. It is recognized here, today, fully. Maybe you survived betrayal from someone you trusted completely. A friend. A family member. A partner. Someone whose actions cut deeper specifically because you never expected it from them. You had to relearn trust from the ground up, slowly, carefully, without letting that betrayal convince you that everyone would eventually do the same thing. You did not let it close your heart completely. That is a genuine, significant victory. Maybe you survived raising children largely alone, carrying responsibilities that were meant to be shared, showing up exhausted day after day because there was simply no one else to show up in your place. The world rarely applauds this kind of quiet, relentless endurance. It should. Maybe you survived addiction, either your own or someone else's that pulled you into its orbit. The lies. The broken promises. The exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment. Getting out of that particular storm, or simply surviving inside it while trying to protect yourself and others, takes a kind of strength rarely discussed openly. Maybe you survived being the one who always holds everyone else together, the family's quiet anchor, while nobody ever thought to ask how you yourself were actually doing underneath all that responsibility. You gave and gave, often with little left over for yourself. That giving, sustained over time, without collapsing entirely, is its own form of survival. Whichever of these matches your own story most closely, or whichever unique combination applies specifically to you, the same underlying truth remains constant. You faced something that could have broken you completely. It did not. That fact alone deserves to be honored today. Here is something worth understanding about the specific timeline of survival, since it rarely follows a clean, simple line from struggle directly to triumph. Real survival usually looks messier than that. 2 steps forward. 1 step back. A good week followed by a genuinely difficult day that seems to undo the progress, even though it does not actually undo it completely. If your own particular healing has felt messy, non-linear, inconsistent, that is normal. That is how genuine survival actually tends to work in real, lived experience, regardless of how cleanly it sometimes gets described afterward in hindsight. You do not need a perfectly linear story in order for your survival to be real and complete. Think about a specific difficult day, even recently, when pain briefly resurfaced with surprising intensity, catching you off guard after a stretch of feeling relatively stable. That day did not undo your progress. It was simply part of how healing actually moves, circling back sometimes before continuing forward again. Give yourself permission for those days. They do not disqualify you from having genuinely survived and healed. Consider, too, the specific people who stood beside you during that difficult season, even if only in small, quiet ways. A friend who checked in regularly. A family member who simply sat with you without needing to fix anything. A stranger who offered one small act of kindness at exactly the right moment. These people mattered. Even if you have not properly thanked them yet. Even if some of them do not know how much their presence actually meant to you during that specific time. Consider reaching out to one of them, if it feels right. A simple message. Thank you for being there during that season. It meant more than you probably realized. Words like these tend to matter more than people expect, both to the person receiving them and to you, the person finally speaking a gratitude that has gone unspoken for too long. Consider, too, the specific ways you supported yourself, even when it did not feel like enough at the time. Getting out of bed on days it felt impossible. Eating something, even when appetite disappeared completely. Reaching out for help, even once, even briefly, even if it felt embarrassing to do so. Each of these small actions added up. They built the foundation that eventually allowed fuller healing to take place. Think, finally, about what you would say to someone else facing exactly what you once faced, someone standing today exactly where you once stood, uncertain whether they would make it through. What would you tell them? What do you know now that you desperately needed to hear back then? Hold that answer closely. It represents genuine wisdom, earned the hard way, through actual lived experience rather than theory. That wisdom belongs to you now. It is yours to keep, and yours to eventually share, whenever you feel ready. Here is a final, important truth before this message closes. You are not defined entirely by what you survived. It is part of your story. It is not the whole story. You are also defined by everything you continue building now, moving forward, with the strength, wisdom, and quiet resilience that particular season helped forge within you. The difficulty is behind you, or perhaps still gently healing within you. Either way, it does not get the final word regarding who you are. You get the final word. And you are choosing, right now, in this very moment, to keep moving forward. That choice matters more than anything that already happened to you. Before this message closes completely, take one final moment. Breathe. Let your shoulders soften. Silently acknowledge to yourself, one more time, what you survived, and what it cost you. Then let yourself feel, even briefly, genuine pride in having made it through. You earned this moment. Do not rush past it. Archangel Michael sees what you carried. This message honors it fully, without minimizing a single part of what it actually cost you. Consider, too, how you will carry this recognition forward, beyond just this single message, into the ordinary days ahead. Survival like this deserves more than one brief moment of acknowledgement before returning immediately to old patterns of dismissing your own strength. Perhaps write it down somewhere. A single sentence. I survived something real, and I am still here. Keep it somewhere you will see it again, on a difficult day when you need the reminder most. Perhaps say it out loud occasionally, even just to yourself, especially during moments when old doubt tries to creep back in and convince you that you are not actually as strong as you know, deep down, that you genuinely are. Perhaps simply let this recognition quietly change how you speak to yourself going forward, replacing old, harsh self-criticism with the same respect you would naturally offer someone else who had survived something equally difficult. You deserve that same respect. Give it to yourself, starting today. Consider, too, what specific moment tomorrow might offer you an opportunity to actually practice this new self-respect in real time. Perhaps a moment of self-criticism you can catch and gently redirect. Perhaps a small act of self-care you can finally allow yourself without guilt. Whatever specific opportunity presents itself, meet it with the gentleness you have genuinely earned. Here is one final thought before this message truly ends. Somewhere, right now, someone else is in the exact place you once were. Struggling. Uncertain. Wondering if they will actually make it through. You do not need to know them personally for your survival to matter to them eventually. Your continued existence, your continued willingness to keep showing up despite everything you have carried, is itself a quiet form of hope for anyone watching, even from a distance, even without your awareness. You surviving is proof that survival is possible. That alone matters, far beyond just your own individual story. You are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become despite it. That is who you actually are. Chosen one, carry that truth with you, today and every day going forward. Let us talk, too, about the specific version of you that existed before this particular season began. Think back to who you were then. Notice the differences honestly. Maybe you were more naive back then, in ways that were not necessarily bad, just untested. Maybe you trusted more easily, without fully knowing what betrayal actually felt like from the inside. Maybe you assumed certain things would simply always stay the same, before life taught you that nothing stays exactly the same forever. That earlier version of you is not gone. But they have grown. They have been refined by something real. Consider what specific new capacity now exists within you that simply did not exist before this particular season. Perhaps a deeper empathy for people going through hard things, because you finally understand it from the inside rather than simply imagining it from a distance. Perhaps a sharper instinct for recognizing which situations and people are genuinely trustworthy. Perhaps simply a quieter, steadier confidence that was not available to you before you had proof of your own resilience. Name this new capacity specifically, if you can. Let yourself recognize it clearly, rather than letting it remain a vague, unnamed shift you have not fully acknowledged. Think about a recent moment when this new capacity actually showed up in your life, whether comforting someone else going through difficulty, or trusting your own instinct about a situation in a way you would not have trusted it before. That moment is evidence. Real, concrete evidence of genuine growth, not simply theoretical possibility. Here is something worth sitting with honestly. Difficult seasons often strip away things that were never actually serving you, even though losing them hurt tremendously at the time. Relationships that were not genuinely healthy. Beliefs about yourself that were never actually true. Habits that were quietly working against your own well-being. This does not mean the loss itself was good, or deserved, or fair. It simply means that sometimes, difficult seasons clear space, even while causing genuine pain in the process, space that eventually gets filled with something more aligned with who you actually are. Consider what specifically got cleared away during your own particular season, and what has since begun filling that space instead. Think about the specific relationship, habit, or belief that once occupied significant space in your life before this season began. Notice honestly whether its absence, however painful initially, has actually created room for something healthier to eventually grow in its place. Think, too, about the specific fears that used to control you before this season, fears that, having now faced something genuinely difficult and survived it, no longer hold quite the same power over you they once did. Maybe you used to fear failure intensely, before living through an actual, significant failure and discovering you survived it anyway. Maybe you used to fear loss intensely, before actually experiencing real loss and discovering that you could carry grief and still continue living a meaningful life. Maybe you used to fear other people's judgment intensely, before a season forced you to focus entirely on survival, leaving little energy left over for worrying about what anyone else thought. Whatever specific fear has loosened its grip because of what you survived, notice that shift. It represents genuine, hard-won freedom, purchased at a real cost, but genuinely yours now regardless. Think about how differently you might respond today to a situation that once would have terrified you completely. Notice that difference. It is real. It did not exist before. It exists now, specifically because of what you already came through. Consider, finally, what it might mean to trust yourself more fully going forward, specifically because of what this season has already proven about your own capability. Trust is often built exactly this way, not through comfortable, easy seasons, but through difficult ones survived successfully, one difficult day at a time. You have earned a deeper trust in yourself. Let yourself actually receive it. Think about a specific decision currently in front of you, however small, where old self-doubt might normally hold you back. Consider approaching that decision today with a bit more of the trust you have genuinely earned through everything already survived. Notice how it feels to lean, even slightly, into that hard-won confidence rather than the familiar doubt. Here is something worth remembering during whatever difficult moments still lie ahead in your life, since difficulty tends to return in various forms throughout every human life, regardless of how much a person has already endured previously. When that next difficult moment arrives, you will not be starting from zero. You will be starting from proven, demonstrated resilience. That resilience does not disappear simply because the specific crisis that built it eventually passed. It remains, quietly available, integrated permanently into who you now are. Carry that truth forward with genuine confidence, earned honestly through everything you have already survived. Think of this resilience almost like a muscle, strengthened specifically through the resistance of genuine difficulty. A muscle does not forget its strength simply because the workout ended. It carries that strength forward, ready to be called upon again whenever needed. Your resilience works the same way. It is not a temporary state that fades once circumstances improve. It is now a permanent part of your capability. Thank you for receiving this message today. Be gentle with yourself. You have already survived enough to have earned that gentleness.